You know what it is. That's right. It's time to talk money with your money nerd and financial coach. Now, tighten those purse strings and open those ears. It's the Money Talk with Tiff podcast.
Hey, this is another episode of Tiffany's Take where I answer your money questions. I know I've been MIA for a little bit, but hopefully you've been enjoying the extra interviews that you've been getting here on the podcast. I had a lot going on just in my personal life. I had funerals and conferences and all types of things. And so I was doing a lot of traveling and didn't get a chance to record. But I'm back and I need to catch up on all of these listener questions that I have received since I've been away, which I'm so very grateful for. And if you want your question answered, just go to www.moneytalkwitht.com/ask Tiffany, and I'll be more than happy to answer for you. So let's just hop right in. So this question that came in, I'm not going to read the whole thing because it is a little lengthy, but essentially they're asking, how do I budget properly when my paycheck varies? And so, they went into what type of job they have, and it's impossible to predict the hours. So pretty much kind of like an entrepreneur, this is kind of what I deal with on a monthly basis as well. I never know how much I'm actually going to make or how much is going to come in. So I actually do my budget this way as well. So how do you budget with variable income? The first thing I would recommend is jotting down your expenses. So I know I usually start with income, but in this case, jot down your expenses first. And the reason we do that is because we want to see how much we need to survive. And so I tell people start with the essentials, like things that you need, like your rent or mortgage, your water, electricity, gas, food, so on and so forth. And go from the top should be the most important things that you need. And then going down to the very bottom should be, things that aren't essential, but you would like to have. And so you want to rank things in that order. And I'll get in a little more into why later, but make sure you start writing down your expenses. And I like to also categorize all my expenses. And so housing is one group. Bills, like utilities are another group, and so on and so forth. So kind of just break it down like that. And you can do this either in Excel or pen and paper. Actually, when I first started with entrepreneurship, I just used pen and paper, and I just wrote down when everything was due, how much I owed, and like I said, put them in order from most important to least important, and then also put them in order from in terms of due date too. So to give you an example, I know my mortgage is due on the first of every month, and I need my mortgage because I want to have a place to live. So that's usually my very, very first thing. Then from there, my electricity bill is the next thing that's due because that's usually due towards the beginning of the month. And so I'll put that. Then the next thing, I'll put my water bill because that's the next thing that's usually due, and so on and so forth. So you want to make sure that you rank these things with those two things in mind, when they're due and their importance. Now, once you get all of your expenses down, we also want to get our debt, so don't forget that, especially if you have credit card debt, high interest rates. Oh my gosh, they're killing a lot of people right now. So many people are reaching out to me. That was another reason why I've been MIA. I've gained a ton of new clients, and so I want to make sure that I give them the service that they need. But a lot of people have been reaching out to me because of credit card debt. So we definitely want to make sure those are a priority, and we want to make sure that we keep our credit score up because we never know when we might need it. So make sure that you're accounting for all the debt that you need to pay on a monthly basis. Now, if you are in a situation and you have debt that can be negotiated, or for instance, student loan payments, right? You may be able to get with your servicer if you can't afford it right now, and just make sure that you are in the best repayment plan possible for your situation. So always think about how can I lower my expenses if it's something where you are, kind of stretching yourself thin or not able to afford some things. So keep that in mind as well. I tell people all the time, and sorry, I'm going on a tangent here, but I tell people all the time, it's better to knock down the bigger expenses if you can than to worry about a $5 latte. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, $5 latte can add up if you're doing it every week, every day, or whatever. But you can probably make bigger headway if you focus on the bigger bills. So just keep that little tip in mind. All right. So now that we have all our expenses down, now we kind of want to reverse engineer and calculate the total. So you want to put what the total is that you need every month to survive, whether it's the bare minimum. Like I like to do two different versions. The bare minimum. So this is like, in order to keep a roof over my head, food in my belly, this is what I need. And then I also like to have a nice to have number. And that nice to have number, might include getting my hair done or nails or massages, whatever those extra things that you would like to do would include. So now once you have both of those numbers, you can also, and I like to do this too, break it down to daily. So how much do I need to make every single day in order to make my goal? So when I was doing this exercise and I was thinking about quitting corporate, at that time, my number was $50 a day. And I was like, oh, $50 a day, I can do that. It's not too bad. So once you have that perspective, it kind of makes it easier when you are having variable income to see how much do you really need to do. Okay. So I always tell my entrepreneurs or people that can, kind of manipulate their income to do it that way. And this person also mentioned that they do side jobs and side hustles and so on. And so they'll have a better idea of how much they actually need to do those side hustles, so you're not just working yourself to death for no reason. Like you have a goal in mind. So once you do that, as your bills start coming in, as your income starts coming in, I'm sorry, you start at the top of the list and you start paying things off until you get to the bottom of the list. And that's the easiest way to do it when you have variable income. Now, I do it a little more structured now because I love using You Need a Budget. That's one of my favorite budgeting apps. And maybe I will do like a how-to video at some point or at least a blog post. But YNAB is perfect for this case in this situation because you can't assign the money until it actually hits your account. So this is pretty much taking what I'm saying and putting it into an app version. Okay. So follow me. But that's exactly how it operates. So until you can put how much you would like to spend in each category, but until the money hits your account, you can't assign it to your categories. And so a lot of times I don't even check my bank account to see how much money I have. I check my budget in YNAB because that's a more accurate portrayal of what I have going on. Because I know if I already assigned my mortgage, I already assigned my electric bill, I already assigned my credit card payments, whatever, that's not going to be reflected in my account, but that is going to be reflected in my budget. So hopefully that makes sense. And so if you're like me and love using tech and, want a more streamlined way of doing it versus like pen and paper or Excel, then check out YNAB. And I'll make sure that I put a link in the show notes, which is an affiliate link, just full disclosure, but I love it. So that way you can check that out. I think if you use my link, you get 45 days for free. It's very generous. So check it out. And like I said, if you have questions with YNAB, I'll be more than happy to answer. Maybe I'll even do like a walkthrough webinar or something like that, because I really believe in the software and it is really helpful for me on a daily basis. So anyway, hopefully that answers your question when it comes to how do I properly budget when my paycheck varies every pay period. So one more thing I forgot to mention that was also in her question is how do I save when everything is unpredictable too? So remember when we were talking about listing out your expenses? Make sure you put some savings at the top, okay? My grandpa always told me, pay yourself first Pay yourself first. And so that is what I do every month. Automatically, I have some money going into an account for savings. Okay. I also have money going into an investment account for investments, because at the end of the day, I'm like, whoever I owe, these bills and everything, they'll get their money, but I need to make sure that I'm taken care of too. Okay. So put your savings up there somewhere at the top. I know on the spreadsheet that I use with my clients, it's at the very, very top. There's charitable giving, and then right under that is savings. And then under that is housing. So definitely make sure you put that in there for yourself. Because like I said, when you have varying income, you can kind of tweak it to how you want. Like, maybe you need to pick up extra side hustles, what have you, to pay your bills. At least you have that money already accounted for that comes to you. Okay. So hopefully, sorry, I know I already said this, but I just remembered that point in her question and I wanted to make sure that I addressed it. But hopefully all of that answered your questions. I'll make sure I'll have some links in the show notes for YNAB. Also, article I did on my blog about budgeting, which has a link to my budgeting spreadsheet if you all are interested in that. You don't have to put in an email or anything like that. It's just out there for you. And hopefully all of that will help you. So if you are interested in having your question answered on the podcast, feel free to go to www.moneytalkwitht.com/Ask Tiffany. So if you're a fan of the podcast or this information was super helpful, please make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe so that way you won't ever miss an episode. When you rate our podcast and review our podcast, it helps other people like you find us. And who doesn't need this information? They don't teach this to us. So let's go ahead and spread the information to, other people that may enjoy it. And I will stop rambling now. So I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week. I'm heading to FinCon this week. And so I'll have some really good interviews coming up. Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you for listening, joining, and being a part of the Money Talk with Tiff podcast this week. You can check Tiff out every Thursday for a new Money Talk podcast. But if you just can't wait until next week, you can listen to previous podcast episodes at moneytalkwitht.com or follow Tiff on all social media platforms at Money Talk with T. Until next time, spend wise by spending less than you make. A word to the money wise is always sufficient.